park, Gina woke up to the sound of alarms. Red lights were flashing everywhere. The cold hit her first, then the fear. She was inside her cryopod, and something was very wrong. She pushed the pod open with shaking hands. Her body hurt. Cryosleep always made her feel like she had been frozen and dropped from a tall building. But this time was worse. The ship was groaning like a dying animal. Gina pulled herself out and fell to the floor. The gravity system was broken. She floated for a moment before grabbing a wall handle. Her breath came out as white mist. The heating system was failing too. She was alone on the Wanderer. It was a small cargo ship, old but reliable. She had been hauling medical supplies to a colony 3 weeks away. The job was simple. The pay was good. Nothing was supposed to go wrong, but something had gone very wrong. Gina pulled herself to the control room. The main screen was cracked, but she could still read the damage report. Hull breach in Section 4. Engine 2 was gone completely. Life support was running on backup power. She had maybe 6 days of oxygen left. Maybe less. She closed her eyes and tried to think. The nearest station was 12 days away. Even if she could fix the engines, she did not have enough fuel. She was drifting in empty space, far from any shipping lanes. She was going to die out here. But then she saw something else on the screen. Something had attached to her ship. The collision that damaged her vessel had left something stuck to the outer hull. It was small, about the size of a car. The computer could not identify it. Gina should have ignored it. She had bigger problems. But something made her put on her suit and go outside. The thing attached to her ship was a pod. An escape pod, but not like any human design she had ever seen. It was smooth and organic looking, like a seed from some giant, alien plant. The surface was cracked. Whatever power it once had was gone. Gina cut through the outer shell with her laser tool. 2 creatures. They were about the size of large dogs, but they looked like insects. They had hard shells that should have been shiny, but were now dull and gray. They had many legs, folded tight against their bodies. Their eyes were closed. They were children. Gina did not know how she knew this, but she knew. Something about the way they were curled together, holding each other. Something about how small and fragile they looked. They were dying. The cold had nearly killed them. Their bodies were stiff and barely moving. Gina stood there for a long moment. She thought about her oxygen supply. She thought about her food. She thought about how she did not know what these creatures were, or if they were dangerous. Then she picked them up, one under each arm, and carried them inside. She took them to her sleeping quarters. It was the warmest room on the ship. She wrapped them in every blanket she had. She turned up the heat as high as the damaged system would allow. She sat with them and rubbed their shells, trying to bring warmth back to their bodies. For 2 days, she did not sleep. She watched them. She talked to them, even though they could not hear her. She told them about Earth, about the oceans she grew up near, about her mother who used to make soup when Gina was sick. On the 3rd day, one of them opened its eyes. The eyes were large and dark, like pools of black water. They looked at Gina with something she could only call confusion. Then, fear. The creature tried to move away, but it was too weak. Gina held up her hands slowly. She did not smile because she did not know if these creatures understood smiles. She just stayed very still and made her voice soft. "It is okay," she said. "I am not going to hurt you." The creature watched her. Then, slowly, it stopped trying to run. It was too tired to be afraid anymore. The second one woke up a few hours later. This one was different. Where the first one was careful and watchful, this one was curious. It looked around the room with wide eyes. It reached out one thin leg and touched Gina's hand. Gina laughed. It was the first time she had laughed in months. She needed to call them something. She could not keep thinking of them as the creatures or the aliens. so she gave them names from her own language. The careful one, she called Yuki. The curious one, she called Haru. Now, she had a new problem. She had to keep them alive, and she did not know how. She did not know what they ate. She tried everything. She offered them protein bars, dried fruit, water, nutrient paste. Yuki refused everything. Haru would sniff each item and then push it away. On the 5th day, Gina was getting desperate. Then she noticed Haru chewing on a piece of plastic that had fallen from a broken panel. She watched more carefully. The creatures seemed drawn to certain materials, plastics, certain metals, organic compounds. She started mixing things together. She mashed up protein paste with synthetic fiber and a little bit of mineral powder from her repair kit. It looked disgusting, but when she offered it to Yuki, the little creature ate it all. Gina cried with relief. The days turned into weeks. Gina fell into a routine. She would wake up, check the ship systems, prepare food for Haru and Yuki, eat her own small meal, and then spend hours trying to fix what she could. The creatures grew stronger. They started following her around the ship. At first, they kept their distance, but slowly, they came closer. Haru would sit next to her while she worked. Yuki would watch from nearby, always watching. At night, when the ship got coldest, they would come to her bed. The first time it happened, Gina woke up to find both of them curled against her, their hard shells pressing into her sides. They were seeking warmth. They were seeking safety. She let them stay. Gina knew her situation was bad. The food was running low. The oxygen would not last forever. She had sent out distress signals, but no one had answered. She was still going to die out here. But somehow, that thought did not scare her as much anymore. She had something to do. She had someone to take care of. For the first time in years, she had a reason to keep fighting. She looked at Haru and Yuki sleeping against her. Their shells were starting to shine again. Their breathing was strong and steady. Whatever happened next, she would keep them safe. She had already decided. These were her children now, and she would not let them die. The stars drifted past the window, cold and uncaring. But inside the broken ship, there was warmth. There was life. There was a small family that had found each other in the dark. And for now, that was enough. The throne room of the Valorian Dominion was carved from living crystal. Light passed through the walls and made everything glow with soft colors. Thousands of Valorians filled the great hall, their shells clicking softly as they moved. They were waiting for their empress to speak. Empress Thyra sat on a throne made of black stone. She was old, very old. She had ruled the Dominion for over 300 years. Her shell was dark, purple, almost black, and covered with golden marks that showed her royal blood. Her eyes were deep red, and they missed nothing. Today, those eyes were filled with pain. The messenger knelt before her. He was shaking. No one wanted to bring bad news to the Empress. "Speak," Thyra commanded. Her voice was soft, but it carried through the entire hall. "Great Empress," the messenger said. The royal transport was attacked near the border. Raiders. They came out of nowhere. The ship's guards fought bravely, but they were outnumbered. Thyra's claws dug into the stone of her throne. "And my sons?" The princes were put in an escape pod and launched before the ship was destroyed. We tracked the pod signal for several hours. Then it went dark. Our search teams have found nothing. The pod entered uncharted space near human territory. The hall was silent. Everyone was watching the Empress. Everyone was afraid. Thyra stood. She was tall, taller than most Valorians. When she moved, it was with the grace of a hunter. "You are telling me," she said slowly, "that my youngest sons are lost, that you do not know if they are alive or dead, that they may be drifting somewhere in the void, alone and afraid." The messenger pressed his head to the floor. Yes, Great Empress, I am sorry. The search will continue, but the council believes. The council believes the princes are dead. Thyra was quiet for a long moment. The silence was worse than any scream. Then she spoke. The council believes many things. The council believed we could not win the war against the Kethrani. The council believed our expansion would fail. The council has been wrong before. She walked down the steps of her throne. Every Valorian in the hall lowered their head as she passed. My sons are not dead, she said. I would know. A mother would know. They are out there, waiting for me to find them. And I will find them. She turned to her advisors. Send Commander Kwon Do-hyun to me. Now. The advisors looked at each other nervously. Kwon Do-hyun was not Valorian. He was human. A mercenary who had served the Dominion for 15 years. He was the best tracker in 3-star systems, but many in the court did not trust him. Humans were unpredictable. Humans were emotional. Humans were dangerous. But the Empress had asked for him, and no one would refuse her. An hour later, Do-hyun stood before the throne. He was tall for a human, with sharp eyes and a face that showed little emotion. He wore simple clothes and carried no visible weapons. Though everyone knew he had many hidden, he did not kneel. The Empress had told him long ago that he did not need to. This made the court angry. But Do-hyun did not care about the court. You called for me, he said. My sons are missing, Thyra said. Their escape pod disappeared near human space. The search teams have given up. I need you to find them. Do-hyun nodded slowly. The trail will be cold. If they entered human territory, things get complicated. Humans do not trust Valorians. They will not help us search. I do not care about complications, Thyra said. I care about my children. Can you find them? Do-hyun was quiet for a moment. He thought about the vast emptiness of space, the countless places a small pod could drift. He thought about the chances of 2 young Valorians surviving alone in the void. I can try, he said. I will need full access to all tracking data, all ship movements in that sector, for the past month. And I will need to work alone. No Valorian soldiers. They will only make things harder in human space. Done, Thyra said without hesitation. The advisors began to protest. It was not proper. It was not safe. A human, working alone, representing the Dominion? Thyra silenced them with a look. Commander Do-hyun has never failed me. He found the assassin who killed my 3rd husband. He tracked the rebels who bombed our colony on Valar Prime. If anyone can find my sons, it is him. Do-hyun bowed his head slightly. I will leave within the hour. After he left, the advisors gathered around the Empress. They spoke in low voices about politics, about succession, about what would happen if the princes were truly dead. Thyra listened to none of it. She walked to a window and looked out at the stars, Vorin and Talus, her youngest, her most beloved. They were born late in her life, a surprise she had not expected. Their father had been kind and gentle, one of the few mates she had truly loved. When he died, she had poured all her remaining love into those 2 children. Vorin was serious and thoughtful. He spent hours reading, learning, preparing for the day he might be called to lead. Talus was wild and curious. He was always exploring, always asking questions, always getting into trouble. They were so different, but they loved each other deeply. They were never apart. When Vorin worried too much, Talus made him laugh. When Talus went too far, Vorin pulled him back. Now they were alone in the dark, and Thyra could do nothing but wait. She had conquered armies. She had built an empire. She had survived betrayal, war, and loss. But this helplessness was worse than any battle. In the shadows of the court, others were whispering. Some were sad. Some were worried. And some were making plans. The princes had enemies. Their existence complicated things. There were factions who wanted a different heir on the throne. There were those who saw the missing princes as an opportunity. One advisor, an old Valorian named Counselor Veth, watched the Empress with careful eyes. He had served the throne for 100 years. He had seen empresses come and go. Form. In. 10. He knew that power was a game, and games had winners and losers. If the princes were dead, certain doors would open, certain alliances would shift, the future of the Dominion would change. Veth told himself he hoped the princes were found safe. He told himself he was loyal. But deep in his mind, he was already making calculations. Far away, in the cold of space, a damaged human ship drifted through a nebula. Inside, a woman was feeding 2 young Valorians, a strange mixture of protein paste and synthetic fiber. She did not know that these children were princes. She did not know that an empire was searching for them. She did not know that her simple act of kindness would change the course of history. She only knew that they were hungry, and she had food to share. She only knew that they were cold, and she had warmth to give. She only knew that they were alone, and so was she. And in that moment, that was enough. 3 months had passed since Gina found Haru and Yuki in their broken pod. The Wanderer still drifted through space, but it was no longer silent. It was filled with sounds of life. Haru was clicking at something in the corner of the cargo bay. He had found a piece of broken machinery and was trying to take it apart. His many legs moved quickly, pulling at wires and panels. He was always touching things, always exploring. Nothing on the ship was safe from his curiosity. Yuki sat near Gina, watching her work on the navigation computer. Unlike Haru, Yuki preferred to observe. She would sit for hours, her dark eyes following every movement Gina made. She was learning. Gina could see it in the way Yuki tilted her head, the way she sometimes reached out to touch a button or screen. Gina smiled at her. It was strange how quickly she had learned to read their moods. A certain click meant they were happy. A low hum meant they were worried. When they rubbed their front legs together, they were cold. She had been so afraid in those first days. Afraid she would do something wrong, feed them something bad, hurt them without meaning to. But they had survived. They had more than survived. They were growing. Haru's shell had changed from dull gray to a soft blue-green color. Yuki's shell was darker, almost purple. Both of them were bigger now, reaching up to Gina's waist. They moved with more confidence, more strength, and they had started to speak. It began with simple sounds. Haru would make a certain noise when he wanted food. Yuki would make a different noise when she wanted to sleep. Gina started responding to these sounds, and slowly, without really planning it, they developed a language between them. Then Yuki said her first human word. It happened at breakfast. Gina was dividing the food, giving larger portions to the young ones. She always did this. There was not much left, and they were growing. They needed it more than she did. Yuki watched her with those careful eyes. Then she said, very clearly, Gina. Gina dropped the food container. She stared at Yuki with her mouth open. Gina, Yuki said again. She pointed one leg at Gina. Gina. Yes, Gina whispered. Yes, that is my name. I am Gina. Yuki made a happy clicking sound. She turned to Haru and spoke in their own language. Haru stopped taking apart his machine and looked at Gina. Then, he tried to copy his sister. Gina, he said. His pronunciation was not as good, but he was trying. Gina laughed and cried at the same time. She gathered both of them in her arms, holding them close. They clicked and hummed against her, and she knew they were happy too. After that, the learning went faster. Gina taught them words for everything on the ship. Water, food, sleep, cold, warm. They learned yes and no, and please, and thank you. Yuki learned faster than Haru, but Haru tried harder. Soon Yuki could speak in simple sentences, Yuki is hungry. Haru is playing. Gina looks tired. That last one became a problem. Gina was tired. She was more than tired. The food was running out, and she had been eating less and less. She told herself it was fine. The young ones were growing. They needed the nutrients. She was an adult. She could handle a little hunger, but a little hunger became a lot of hunger. Her clothes hung loose on her body. Her hands shook when she worked. Sometimes she got dizzy and had to sit down. She tried to hide it. She would eat her tiny portions when Haru and Yuki were not watching. She would tell them she had already eaten. She would smile and say she was full. Yuki was not fooled. One evening, Gina found a small pile of food next to her pillow. It was the nutrient mixture she made for the young ones. She looked up and saw Yuki watching from the doorway. "For Gina," Yuki said. "Gina must eat." Gina shook her head. "No, that is yours. You need to eat to grow strong." Yuki walked closer. Her voice was firm, in a way Gina had never heard before. "Gina is getting small. Gina is getting weak. If Gina does not eat, Gina will die." The word hit Gina like a punch. Die. Yuki had learned that word. "Yuki." Gina started. "No." Yuki's eyes were fierce. "Haru and Yuki need Gina. Gina is our mother. Mothers must not die." Mother. She had called her mother. Gina's eyes filled with tears. She tried to speak but could not find any words. Instead, she just held Yuki close and cried into her shell. Haru came running when he heard the sounds. He did not understand what was happening, but he pushed himself into the hug anyway. Both young ones wrapped their legs around Gina, holding her tight. "Please eat," Yuki whispered. "Please." Gina ate. It was hard to swallow past the lump in her throat, but she ate every bite. And from that day on, she stopped lying about food. They shared everything equally. Even when it meant everyone was a little hungry, the weeks continued to pass. The ship drifted closer to inhabited space. Gina managed to fix the long-range radio, and she started picking up signals from a human colony called Nova Settlement. It was small and far from the main trade routes. But it was civilization. It was hope. She plotted a course. With their remaining fuel, they might just make it. At night, she would lie in her bed with Haru on one side and Yuki on the other. They were too big now to curl up against her like they used to, but they still wanted to be close. Their warmth surrounded her. Their breathing was slow and peaceful. Gina thought about the future. What would happen when they reached the colony? What would people think when they saw her with 2 alien children? Would anyone help them? Would anyone even let them land? She did not have answers. She only had hope. "Gina," Yuki said softly in the darkness. "Tell us about Earth again." So Gina told them. She told them about blue oceans and green forests. She told them about rain falling from the sky and snow covering the ground. She told them about cities full of people and quiet villages in the mountains. "Will we see Earth someday?" Haru asked. His words were still rough, but he was getting better. Gina thought about it. She had left Earth 10 years ago and never looked back. She had told herself she did not miss it. But now, with these 2 beside her, she found herself wanting to show them everything. The beach where she learned to swim, the market where her grandmother used to sell vegetables, the night sky full of stars that looked different from Earth than from anywhere else. "Maybe," she said. "We want to," Yuki said. "We want to see Gina's home." Gina smiled in the darkness. Home. She had not had a home in a long time. But maybe home was not a place. Maybe home was the people you loved. Maybe home was wherever you felt safe. If that was true, then she was already home. The ship hummed around them, broken but still flying. The stars waited outside, cold and endless. But inside, there was warmth and love, and a small family that had found each other against all odds. Tomorrow, they would start their journey to Nova Settlement. Tomorrow, They would face whatever came next. But tonight, they were together. And that was all that mattered. Commander Kwon Do-hyun sat alone in his small ship, staring at a holographic map of human space. 3 months of searching had led him here, to this tiny corner of the galaxy that most people forgot existed. He had followed the trail piece by piece. The escape pod's last known signal, the debris field from the collision, the shipping routes that passed through that sector. Every piece of information led him closer to the truth. The princes had survived the initial launch. Their pod had drifted for days before hitting something. That something was a human cargo ship called the Wanderer, registered to a woman named Park Gina, a simple hauler with no criminal record, no political connections, nothing special about her at all. But her ship had gone silent after the collision. No distress signals, no communication with any station. For 3 months, the Wanderer had been a ghost. Then, 2 days ago, Do-hyun found it. A small trading station near the border had recorded a brief transmission. A woman's voice, weak and tired, asking for directions to Nova Settlement. The ship identification matched the Wanderer. Do-hyun plotted a course and pushed his engines to maximum speed. He thought about what he would find when he arrived. The princes could be dead. The human could have killed them, accidentally or on purpose. Humans were unpredictable. They did strange things for strange reasons. Or the princes could be alive. They could be prisoners, held for ransom. They could be experiments, studied by some human scientist. They could be slaves, put to work in human mines or factories. None of these thoughts were pleasant. But Do-hyun had learned long ago not to hope for good outcomes. Hope made you careless. Hope got you killed. He would find the truth, whatever it was, and then he would act. Far ahead, the Wanderer limped toward Nova Settlement. The colony was visible now, a small cluster of lights against the darkness of space. Gina watched it grow larger and felt something she had not felt in months. Hope. What is that? Haru asked, pressing his face against the window. That is where we are going, Gina said. Nova Settlement. There will be other humans there. They can help us. Yuki was quiet. She had been quiet all morning. Gina knew something was bothering her, but she did not want to push. Finally, Yuki spoke. Will the humans like us? For with a realm. Will the humans like us? Gina's heart hurt. It was such a simple question, and she did not have a good answer. I do not know, she said honestly. Humans can be afraid of things they do not understand. But I will protect you. I promise. The landing was rough. The ship's systems were failing, and Gina barely managed to bring them down on the colony's small landing pad. When the engines finally stopped, she sat in the pilot's chair and let out a long breath. They had made it. The colony was poor and dusty. The buildings were old, patched together from whatever materials people could find. But there were people here. Real people, walking and talking and living their lives. Gina stepped out of the ship with Haru and Yuki close behind her. People stopped to stare. She saw their eyes move from her to the young Valorians, and she saw fear and confusion on their faces. She kept her head high and walked toward the main building. A woman met them at the door. She was young, with kind eyes and worried hands. Her name tag said, Back Sora, Medical. Are you okay? Sora asked, looking at Gina's thin body. You look like you need help. I am fine, Gina said. But I need food. And someone who can look at my... She paused. What did she call them? My children. Sora's eyes went wide when she looked at Haru and Yuki. Those are Valorians. Yes. How do you have Valorian children? I found them. Their pod crashed into my ship. They were dying. I saved them. Sora was quiet for a long moment. Then she shook her head and stepped aside. Come in. Let me examine everyone. The examination took hours. Sora had never treated Valorians before, but she was careful and thorough. She checked their shells, their eyes, their vital signs. She asked Gina 100 questions about what they had eaten, how they had slept, what problems they had faced. When she was done, she sat back and looked at Gina with something like amazement. They are healthy, she said. More than healthy. They are thriving. Whatever you did it right. Gina felt tears coming but pushed them back. I just tried to keep them alive. Sora turned to her computer and started typing. Her face grew serious. I need to tell you something. I ran their biological markers through my database. These are not just any Valorians. What do you mean? Sora turned the screen to show Gina. See these patterns on their shells? These golden marks? They are royal markers. These children are princes of the Valorian Dominion. Gina felt the world spin around her. Princes. She had been caring for alien princes. The Dominion has been searching for them for months, Sora continued. There are reports all over the networks. They think the princes are dead. But they are still looking. I did not kidnap them, Gina said quickly. I did not know what they were. I just found them dying. I believe you. Sora put a hand on Gina's arm. But the Valorians might not. They could see this as a crime. They could come for you. As if in answer to her words, an alarm started ringing throughout the colony. Someone ran past the window, shouting, Valorian ship. A Valorian ship is entering orbit. Gina's blood went cold. She looked at Haru and Yuki. They were scared too, pressing close to her legs. Sora grabbed Gina's hand. You need to go. Take your ship and run. I can delay them. Gina thought about it. She could run. She could take the children and disappear into deep space. But her ship was broken. Her fuel was almost gone. And she was so tired of running. She straightened her back. No. What? I said no. I did nothing wrong. I saved 2 children who were dying. If the Valorians want to punish me for that, they can try. But I will not run. I will not teach Haru and Yuki that kindness is something to be ashamed of. Sora looked at her with surprise and respect. You are either very brave or very stupid. Maybe both. Gina almost smiled. But I have been running my whole life. I am tired. It is time to stand still and face whatever comes. She walked back outside with Haru and Yuki. The colony's people were gathering, looking up at the sky where a dark ship was descending. It was sleek and dangerous looking, nothing like the clumsy human vessels. Gina sat down on a cargo crate and waited. Her heart was pounding, but her hands were steady. Whatever came next, she would face it. For Haru, for Yuki, for the family they had become. The ship landed. A door opened, and a figure stepped out into the dusty light of Nova Settlement. Gina looked at the man walking toward her, surrounded by shadows that were not quite human. She tightened her arms around her children. The moment of truth had arrived. Commander Kwon Do-hyun walked across the dusty landing pad with 6 Valorian warriors behind him. They were tall and armored, their shells gleaming black in the weak sunlight. Their eyes moved constantly, watching for threats. The colonists had gathered in small groups, whispering and pointing. They had never seen Valorians before, not in person. To them, these were monsters from stories, creatures from nightmares. Do-hyun ignored them all. His eyes were fixed on the woman sitting on a cargo crate near a damaged ship. She was thin, too thin. Her clothes hung loose on her body, and her face had the hollow look of someone who had not eaten properly in a long time. But her eyes were steady as she watched him approach. Behind her, 2 young Valorians pressed close together. Their shells were bright and healthy, their eyes wide with fear. When they saw the warriors, they made high sounds of distress and pushed closer to the human woman. Do-hyun stopped 10 feet away. This was not what he had expected. He had expected to find a criminal, a smuggler. someone who had captured the princes for profit or power. He had prepared himself for a fight. Instead, he found this: a starving woman protecting two children who were clearly afraid of the soldiers who had come to rescue them. "Park Gina," he said. His voice was calm. "I am Commander Quan Do-hyun. I work for the Valorian Dominion. I have been sent to retrieve the princes." Gina did not move. "They are right here. They have been with me for 3 months. They are healthy and safe. I can see that." Do-hyun studied the young Valorians. They were indeed healthy. More than healthy. They looked better than any royal children he had ever seen in the palace, where servants attended to every need. "How did you find them?" he asked. Gina told him the story simply. The collision, the broken pod, the 2 dying children she had brought inside, the months of learning how to care for them, feed them, keep them alive. The warriors listened with growing disbelief. One of them stepped forward. "Lies," he said. "Humans cannot care for Valorian young. She must have had help. She must be working with someone." Gina laughed. It was a tired sound. "Help? Look at me. Do I look like someone who had help? I gave them everything I had. I gave them my food. I gave them my warmth. I kept them alive because it was the right thing to do." Do-hyun held up a hand to silence the warrior. He was watching the princes. The young ones had not moved from behind Gina. They were watching the soldiers with fear. But every few seconds, their eyes went to Gina. They were checking on her, making sure she was safe. "Gina, can you speak?" Do-hyun asked the princes in the Valorian language. The smaller one, the one with the purple shell, answered. But she did not speak in Valorian. She spoke in broken human words. "Yes, we speak," Gina taught us. Do-hyun felt something shift inside him. The princes had learned human language before their own. "Do you know who I am?" he asked, still in Valorian. The prince tilted her head. She did not understand. Gina put a gentle hand on the young one's shell. "Yuki. He is asking if you know him." "No," Yuki said. "He is stranger. Strangers can be dangerous," Gina said. The bigger prince, the one with the blue-green shell, stepped forward slightly. His voice was rougher, less practiced. "What does he want?" "He wants to take you," Gina said quietly. "He wants to bring you back to your real mother." Both princes went very still. Then, slowly, they pressed even closer to Gina. "No," Yuki said. "No?" Do-hyun repeated. "No. We stay with Gina Mother. Gina Mother kept us warm. Gina Mother gave us food when she had none. Gina Mother is ours." Insidious. Unlazers why? The warriors exchanged glances. This was wrong. This was not how royal children behaved. They should be running to their rescuers, grateful to be saved from the primitive human. Do-hyun stepped closer. Haru immediately moved in front of Gina, spreading his legs wide to make himself look bigger. His young voice made a warning sound that Do-hyun recognized. A threat display. This child, barely old enough to walk properly, was trying to protect his human caretaker from armed Valorian soldiers. "Stop," Do-hyun said to his warriors. "Everyone, stop moving." He lowered himself to one knee so he was at eye level with the princes. He kept his voice soft. "I am not here to hurt anyone. I am not here to take your Gina Mother away from you. I was sent by Empress Thyra. Do you remember her? She is your birth mother. She has been looking for you for a very long time. She misses you very much." Haru and Yuki looked at each other. Something passed between them. A conversation in clicks and hums that Do-hyun could not follow. Then Yuki spoke. "We remember. We remember big halls and many servants. We remember her. She was busy. Always busy. Never had time for us. She wants you back," Do-hyun said. "She has been searching since the day you disappeared." "And Gina?" Haru asked. "What happens to Gina?" Do-hyun did not answer immediately. He looked at the thin woman sitting on the cargo crate. Her eyes met his. She was not begging. She was not bargaining. She was just waiting to learn her fate. "I do not know," he said honestly. "That will be for the Empress to decide." Yuki shook her head. "Not good enough. Gina comes with us. Gina stays safe. Or we do not go." One of the warriors made an angry sound. "They are children. They do not make demands. Be quiet." Do-hyun snapped. He turned back to Gina. "The princes have bonded with you. Do you understand what that means?" Quote. Gina shook her head. "In Valorian culture, when a young one bonds with a caretaker, that bond is sacred. It cannot be forced or broken. It is considered one of the deepest connections our species can form." He paused. "They have chosen you as a second mother. In the eyes of Valorian law, you are now connected to the royal family." Gina stared at him. "I am a cargo hauler from Earth. I do not even know how to curtsy." Despite everything, Do-hyun almost smiled. "I do not think that matters to them." He stood up and took out a communication device. "I need to contact the Empress. This situation is complicated. She will want to know that her sons are alive, and she will want to hear about what you did for them." He walked a short distance away and spoke quietly into the device. Gina could not hear what he said. She just sat and waited, her arms around Haru and Yuki. "Are you scared?" Yuki whispered. "A little," Gina admitted. "But I have been scared before. It always passes." "We will protect you," Haru said firmly. "We are small, but we are brave. We will not let them hurt Gina, mother." Gina's eyes filled with tears. She pulled them both close and kissed the tops of their shells. "I know you will," she said. "My brave little ones, my children." Do-hyun returned. His face was unreadable. "The Empress wants to see you herself. She is coming here." Gina felt her stomach drop. "Yes. She left the moment I told her the princes were alive. She will arrive in 3 days." He paused. "I suggest you prepare yourself. Empress Thyra is not like anyone you have ever met. She will have many questions for you." Gina looked at her thin body, her worn clothes, her damaged ship. She had nothing. She was nobody. And in 3 days, she would stand before the most powerful being in 3 star systems. But she had survived months alone in space. She had kept 2 children alive, with nothing but determination and love. She had faced death and won. She could face an empress too. "Let her come," Gina said quietly. "I have nothing to hide." Do-hyun nodded slowly. Something in his eyes looked almost like respect. "Then we will wait," he said. Together. The sky turned dark with ships. One by one, they appeared from nowhere. Massive vessels that blocked out the stars. The people of Nova Settlement had never seen anything like it. They stood in the streets, looking up with open mouths. The royal fleet of the Valorian Dominion had arrived. Gina stood in the landing area with Haru and Yuki on either side of her. She had done her best to clean herself up. Dr. Sora had given her new clothes and made sure she ate 3 proper meals. But she was still thin, still tired, still looking like what she was, a poor cargo hauler who had stumbled into something far too big for her. Commander Do-hyun stood nearby. Over the past 3 days, he had become something almost like a friend. He had explained Valorian customs to her, warned her about what to expect, even practiced with her how to address the Empress. "Remember," he said now, "speak clearly. Do not lie. Do not try to impress her. Just tell the truth." "What if the truth is not enough?" Do-hyun did not answer. The largest ship descended. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time, covered in patterns that seemed to shift and move in the light. When it landed, the ground shook. A ramp extended from the ship. First came soldiers, dozens of them, spreading out to form a path. Then came advisors in flowing robes, Then came servants carrying banners and symbols of power. And then came Empress Thyra. She was the largest Valorian Gina had ever seen. Her shell was so dark it seemed to absorb light, marked with golden patterns that glowed softly. Her eyes were deep, red, and ancient. She moved with a grace that made everyone else look clumsy. This was a creature who had ruled for 300 years. This was a being who had conquered worlds. This was power, given form. Gina's legs felt weak. She wanted to run. She wanted to hide. But she forced herself to stay still. The Empress walked down the path of soldiers until she stood 20 feet from Gina. Her eyes moved over the scene, the small human woman, the damaged ship behind her, and the two young Valorians pressed against the human's legs. For a long moment, no one moved. No one spoke. Then Haru and Yuki saw their birth mother. Something shifted in their eyes. Memory came flooding back. They remembered her voice, her smell, the feeling of her presence. They had not forgotten completely. They could never forget. But they did not run to her. Instead, they pressed closer to Gina. Yuki grabbed Gina's hand with one of her legs. Haru moved slightly in front of her. Protective. The Empress watched this. Her ancient eyes showed nothing. "My sons," she said. Her voice was deep and musical. "You have grown." "Yes, mother," Yuki answered in the human language. Then she switched to broken Valorian. "We have grown. Gina mother helped us grow." The court behind the Empress stirred. Whispers ran through the ranks. Gina mother. The princes had named this human their mother. Thyra raised a hand and the whispers stopped instantly. "I have heard the story from Commander Do-hyun," she said. "But I wish to hear it from you, human. Tell me what happened. Tell me everything." Gina swallowed hard. Her voice came out rough at first. But she found her strength and kept going. She told the Empress about finding the pod, about the two dying children inside. She told her about the cold nights when she held them to keep them warm. She told her about figuring out what to feed them, about teaching them to speak, about the day the food ran out. She told her about Yuki hiding portions of food for her, about Haru trying to fix the ship with his small legs, about the nights they spent together, talking about Earth and the future and all the things they would do when they were safe. When she finished, the Empress was silent for a long time. "You gave them your food," Thyra said finally. "Even when you were starving. They were children. They needed it more than me. You could have left them in their pod. You could have preserved your resources for yourself." "No." Gina shook her head. "I could not. They were alone, and afraid, and dying. How could I just leave them?" Thyra moved closer. The soldiers tensed, but she waved them back. She stopped just feet from Gina and looked down at her with those ancient red eyes. "I have ruled the Dominion for 300 years, the Empress said. "I have seen the best and worst of many species. I have learned that most beings, when faced with sacrifice, choose themselves. It is nature. It is survival. I expected you to be the same." Gina said nothing. She was not sure if she was supposed to respond. "But you did not choose yourself," Thyra continued. "You chose my sons. You starved yourself so they could eat. You froze yourself so they could stay warm. You loved them when you had no reason to." She turned to look at Haru and Yuki. They looked back at her, still pressed against Gina. "My children," Thyra said, in Valorian. "Do you love this human?" Number 4. To love this human. "Yes," Yuki answered immediately. "She is our Gina mother. She is part of us now. And if I ordered you to leave her? To come back to the palace and never see her again?" The twins looked at each other. Then Haru spoke, his voice rough but firm. "Then we would be sad. Very sad. Because you are our mother too. And we love you. But we would not leave Gina. She did not leave us when leaving would have been easier. We will not leave her." The court erupted in whispers again. This was unheard of. Royal children defying their empress? For a human? But Thyra did not look angry. She looked thoughtful. You have raised them well, she said to Gina. They have learned loyalty. They have learned love. They have learned to stand for what they believe, even against power. She paused. These are lessons I could not have taught them in the palace. I did not try to teach them anything, Gina said. I just tried to keep them alive. Sometimes that is the best teaching of all. The Empress turned to her advisors. Counselor Veth, the old advisor who had hoped the princes would never be found, stepped forward. Great Empress, he said smoothly. This human, whatever her intentions, kept royal children without permission. This could be seen as unintention. It could be seen as saving their lives, Thyra interrupted. Do you disagree, Counselor? Veth's mouth opened and closed. No, Great Empress. Of course not. Good. Thyra looked at him with cold eyes. Because if you suggest punishing someone who saved my sons, I might have to question your loyalty. Veth stepped back quickly, his face pale. Thyra turned back to Gina. I have a question for you, human. Answer honestly. I will. What do you want? My treasury is vast. My power is absolute. I could give you wealth, land, a ship, anything you desire. Name it. Gina thought about it. She thought about all the things she could ask for. A new ship, money to retire, a home, somewhere, safe and quiet. But when she looked at Haru and Yuki, she knew there was only one thing she wanted. I want to stay with them, she said simply. I do not care about money or ships. I just want to be with my children. If you allow that, I need nothing else. The Empress stared at her for a long moment. Then, slowly, something strange happened. Empress Thyra, ancient ruler of 3 star systems, smiled. Good answer, she said softly. Good answer. The great throne room of the Valorian Dominion was filled with more beings than Gina had ever seen in one place. Thousands of Valorians stood in perfect rows, their shells gleaming in the crystal light. Advisors, generals, nobles, and servants all waited in silence. Gina stood near the front, wearing clothes that had been made for her by the palace tailors. They were simple, but elegant. Nothing like the rough cargo hauler outfits she was used to. Haru and Yuki stood on either side of her, their shells polished until they shone. She had been in the palace for 1 week. It had been the strangest week of her life. The servants treated her with respect, even fear. The nobles whispered when she passed. The advisors watched her with suspicious eyes. She was a human in the heart of an alien empire, and no one knew quite what to do with her. But the princes never left her side. They showed her the palace gardens, the great libraries, the training grounds where young Valorians learned to fight. They introduced her to their tutors, their servants, their few childhood friends, and every night, they came to her room to sleep. They were too big now to curl up beside her like they used to, so they made nests on the floor near her bed. It was enough just to be close. Now, the Empress was about to make an announcement. The entire court had been called to hear it. Thyra descended from her throne and stood before her people. Her voice carried through the vast hall, without effort. For 300 years, I have ruled the Dominion. I have seen our people grow from a single world to an empire spanning stars. I have fought wars, made peace, and guided us through darkness into light. But in all those years, nothing has surprised me as much as what I am about to tell you. She paused. The hall was absolutely silent. 3 months ago, my youngest sons disappeared. Their ship was attacked, their guards were killed, and they were left to die in the emptiness of space. I believed I had lost them forever. Murmurs ran through the crowd. Everyone knew this story by now, but they were saved. Not by Valorian soldiers, not by our advanced technology, not by the wealth of our empire. They were saved by a human woman who had nothing but a broken ship and a kind heart. Thyra turned and gestured toward Gina. Thousands of eyes focused on the small human. Park Gina found my sons dying in the void. She could have ignored them. She could have saved her resources for herself. Any rational being would have. But she chose to save them instead. She gave them her food when she was starving. She gave them her warmth when she was freezing. She loved them when she had no reason to. The Empress walked down the steps until she stood before Gina. My sons have formed a sacred bond with this human. In our oldest traditions, such a bond cannot be broken. It is a connection deeper than blood, stronger than law. My sons have chosen Park Gina as their second mother, and I will honor their choice. The court erupted. Nobles shouted. Advisors protested. This was unheard of. A human? Honored by the Empress? Given status in the royal family? Counselor Veth stepped forward. Great Empress, please reconsider. Humans are primitives. They are emotional, unpredictable, dangerous. To give one of them a place in the royal house is an insult to our ancestors. Thyra turned to look at him. Her eyes were cold as winter. An insult? She repeated softly. You speak to me of insults? She walked toward Veth, and he backed away with each step she took. When my sons were taken, their guards ran. When the search parties failed, the council told me to give up hope. When I refused to stop looking, you told me I was being foolish. You. She pointed one sharp claw at Veth. You advised me to mourn. You suggested naming a new heir. You were ready to move on before their bodies were even cold. Veth's face had gone pale. Great Empress, I was only thinking of the Dominion. You were thinking of yourself. Thyra's voice was quiet, but deadly. Did you think I would not find out? The investigation is complete. The attack on my son's ship was not random. It was planned. Someone in this court paid those raiders. The hall went completely silent. Everyone was staring at Veth. I do not yet have proof that you were involved, Thyra continued. She turned away from the shaking advisor and walked back to where Gina stood. This human, she said loudly, did what none of you would do. She sacrificed everything for children who were not her own. She showed more honor, more courage, more love than any Valorian in this room. She took Gina's hands in her own. The human's hands were small and soft compared to the Empress's hard claws. But Thyra held them gently. I hereby name Park Gina as Nest Guardian of the Royal House. She will have a place in the palace. She will have a voice in matters concerning the princes. She will be protected by the full power of the Dominion. Gina felt dizzy. This was too much. I am just a cargo hauler, she whispered. You were a cargo hauler, Thyra corrected. She turned to address the court one final time. I have one more announcement. Because of this human's actions, I have decided to open peace talks with the Human Alliance. For too long, our species have viewed each other with suspicion and fear. But if one human woman can show such kindness to Valorian children, then perhaps our peoples have more in common than we believed. She looked at Gina with something almost like warmth. The measure of a species is not their technology or their strength. It is what they do when no one is watching, when there is no reward, when the cost is everything. This human passed a test that most of you would fail, and for that, she has earned my respect. The ceremony ended. The nobles left whispering. The advisors left plotting. But Gina barely noticed. She was surrounded by Haru and Yuki, who were clicking happily and pressing against her. You are staying, Haru said. Gina. Forever is a long time. Gina laughed. We do not care, Yuki said firmly. Forever is not long enough. That night, Gina sat in her new room in the palace. It was bigger than her entire ship. The bed could fit 10 people. The window looked out over gardens that stretched to the horizon. She heard a knock at the door. When she opened it, Empress Thyra stood there, alone, without guards or servants. May I come in? The Empress asked. Gina stepped aside, too surprised to speak. Thyra entered and looked around the room. Then she sat down in a chair that seemed too small for her and looked at Gina with tired eyes. "I wanted to thank you," she said simply. "Not as an empress. As a mother. You do not need to thank me." "Yes, I do. You gave me back my children. You kept them alive when everyone else had given up. There is no reward great enough for that." Gina sat down across from her. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course. Why do the other Valorians hate humans so much? What did we do?" "Ow. One. Thyra was quiet for a moment. "Nothing. That is the problem. You did nothing to earn our fear, but we fear you anyway. Your species is young and chaotic and unpredictable. You spread across the stars faster than any race we have ever seen. You adapt to anything. You survive everything. Some of my people believe that one day, humans will replace us." "That is silly," Gina said. "We are not trying to replace anyone. We just want to live." "I know." Thyra smiled sadly. "But fear does not care about truth. That is why I hope these peace talks will help. I want our peoples to know each other. I want them to see what I have seen in you." She stood to leave, then paused at the door. "My sons love you very much. I can see it every time they look at you. I admit. At first, I was jealous. I am their mother. I should be the one they love most. But then, I realized something." "What?" Love is not a competition. It does not run out. Haru and Yuki love you, and they love me. Those feelings do not take away from each other. They add together. My sons have 2 mothers now, and they are stronger for it." She opened the door. "Thank you, Park Gina, for saving my children, for teaching me something about love, and for giving me hope that our species can be friends." She left. Gina sat alone in her big room, looking out at the alien stars. A year ago, she had been nobody. A lonely cargo hauler drifting through space, with no family, no home, no purpose. Now she had 2 children who loved her. She had an empress who respected her. She had a place where she belonged, all because she had stopped to help 2 dying children in the dark. Later that night, Haru and Yuki came to her room. They were too big to sleep in her bed now, but they made nests on the floor and settled down close to her. "Gina, mother," Yuki said softly, "tell us about Earth again." So Gina told them. She told them about blue oceans and green forests, about rain and snow, about the small house where she grew up. She told them they would visit someday. She told them they would see everything together. And as she talked, she realized something. She was finally home. Not because of the palace or the power or the titles, but because she was with the people who loved her, and she loved them back. That was all home had ever been. 2 mothers from different stars, looking at the same sky. 2 children who had found love in the darkest place. A family that should have been impossible, but somehow was not. In the end, that was the real surprise. Not the power or the politics or the peace talks. Just love, found in the most unexpected place, growing stronger every day. And that was more than enough.